that when I talk to people about it, it's like, oh yeah, we're kind of niche, so need that segue. So. Alrighty, the FGC was pretty much, it was born out of the arcade scene in the 90s. You know, everybody, my favorite game right there, Mortal Kombat. And just basically that, it was a culture of pride, basically. You would play for pride. You want to be the best. You want to continue to strive to be the best. This is a mantra that I have developed in my life, is just striving to be the best. But I've learned to strive in a way that I am not putting like unnecessary stress to be the best. Like, there's no such thing as being perfect, but it's okay to be a better you. I actually had to get some notes from some friends of mine because I didn't join the FGC until about 2015. So, 16. That's my name. So I had to get some notes from some buddies who've been in the scene longer than I have, like 10 years longer. So the FGC as a community, there's like been little bitty itty communities here and there throughout the states and throughout the world, but like I got the state version from, I don't know if you guys know Alex Valle, so it's interesting. Alex Valle from Southern California, or SoCal. So, long and short of it, it was Valle, Mike, Mr. Wizard, Shano, these are a bunch of players you probably don't know, it's okay, but these are like OG players that were in the SoCal scene that played Street Fighter, Tekken, stuff like that. Tekken, I think, was 1994, 1995, but competitively, Tekken kind of became a little more prevalent in esports around Tekken Tag. I want to say Tekken Tag, because that's when we had a lot of Street Fighter players that also played Tekken Tag. I think that, yes, Vi actually had a Jin team, I think. They're going to be mad, I don't know that little aspect of trivia. But anyway, these are people that kind of built up the scene. And one of the things I want to mention also about Vi is this is someone who he really had a strong belief in the FGC. So much so, he would host locals at his house in his garage. He would get like tables and he'd have like setups where basically people could come and play. And this was around when the FGC was kind of weird. Well, if you look at the Capcom lore, Capcom thinks that or a lot of Street Fighter players think they own the FGC. And a lot of their story comes from there because they have the most detailed history. So, but there was a time around before Street Fighter 4 came out that the scene was kind of dying out, and Vi started these locals. It was an amazing thing, and the emphasis was on community. From this grew Wednesday Night Fights. It's nicknamed Thursday Night Fights because you start off watching it on Wednesday, but it officially doesn't start until about noon our time, and it finishes up around 4 or 5. So if you have some time on a Wednesday and you don't care too much about sleep, you check out Wednesday Night Fights on Asvi's Twitch, Level of Life. Yes, let's go and let's move on. So, as I mentioned, I got into the FGC around 2016, but I had always been an avid fighting game player. It was me and my brother, and for the longest, it was always just us. And occasionally, our dad would play with us, but we got to a point where, like, when you get strategy guys and you learn how to beat people, you know, and it's like, oh, it's okay, I don't want to play. I'm ashamed. So, it ended up becoming just my brother and I, and we would just spend hours and hours and hours just playing Mortal Kombat, Tekken, Street Fighter, and then kind of died off a little bit after 2 Turbo. But we stayed with our staple, we stayed with Mortal Kombat and Tekken. I got into King of Fighters around 14, but then like, KOF community is an interesting place. But a lot of it was, this was kind of like because I was a latchkey kid when I I was younger. So playing with my brother, we just kind of, it was to me, it was a situation that, oh, we're the only people that like this game, or that play games like this, because when we talk to others about it, kind of get like the weird stares, the stares. So I'm just like, okay, so maybe it's just me and my brother. So I go on, I'm in my undergrad, and I remember this story like it was like yesterday. I remember seeing, my shirt, by the way, Skullgirls. I saw this game and someone playing in front of me, and I started doing some research on Skullgirls, and I realized there were a lot of people that played it competitively, and I kind of stumbled upon the fighting game community, and I remember this rabbit hole, because I don't do this. I cut class because I was watching Skullgirls videos until like 6 and 7 in the morning, and I was just like, I didn't even go to sleep. But I ended up getting into this rabbit hole, and I learned about this community of people that play fighting games. I'm just like, what are these people? Like, I spent my whole life thinking that I was the only person, me and my brother, the only people that play games like this. And so, what ended up for me being something that was solitary and, isolating, I realized there was community there. And I guess since I mentioned isolating, I should reference that. As I mentioned, me and my brother used to play all the time, but it was difficult relating to other kids because we didn't have the same interests. And as I mentioned, the FGC is very small, very niche. And one of the biggest parts of the community is in Southern California. And I'm just in Texas. I don't know too many people that play fighting games the way I do. So I kind of grew up with this kind of like a loner. Like, I had friends, but it was just people I talked to because of proximity. It wasn't like I had established a friendship and a relationship to a point where I could share that, oh yeah, I play these games, and da-da-da. I remember in the 3rd grade being laughed at because I played Mortal Kombat 3, and jokes on them, I memorized a lot of fatalities in Mortal Kombat 3, so if they wanted to finish somebody, they'd have to ask me. But I remember this incident when I was in the 3rd grade of being laughed at for talking about Mortal Kombat 3 and bringing my strategy guide. And I remember that day cemented to me that was the day I realized, I was like, I'm different. And it wasn't something I was like, it wasn't something I celebrated because at the time, as kids want to fit in, kids want friends, kids want community, but I realized that the things I was interested in, not a lot of people were interested in. And this continued for a while until I stumbled upon Skullgirls and actually learned about the fighting game community. And it was so just like amazing because I was like, oh my gosh, you're weirdos too. And it was just like this cool thing of just being with hanging around people who were weirdos like me and who enjoyed the same hobbies that I did. Hey, where's the picture here? It's fine. It was a picture of Combo Breaker, but I guess I don't know.
Sorry, Combo Breaker is what?
Combo Breaker is in May. Combo Breaker is a fighting game tournament. If you are interested, I really hope you guys go. It's really awesome, 24/7 venue. That pretty much means even though it's open for 3 days, you probably won't get much sleep for 3 days. Really awesome. But anyway, I brought up the Combo Breaker picture because I started going to tournaments. My actually very first tournament was Absolute Battle 7. And I went as a spectator. I didn't go as a player yet because I was nervous. I was like, I don't know, how many people actually go to these things? And I didn't really understand, because I'd never been to a fighting game tournament. And so I went, and I was just like, this is a thing that people do, and they get excited like I do. And it's just it was just this amazing feeling that feeling of you click with somebody. And I remember just being like, these are my people. And I took on that, and I was like, I stopped for a while, and it's interesting, when I tell a lot of people this, I stopped playing fighting games for a while because I thought that it made me too weird. And then when I went to my first tournament, and I'm talking to everyone about it, and I was like, I used to play like really crazy, and then I stopped because I just like figured that I was just too weird. Now that maybe I do spend too much time playing games. And he's like, no, man, you just need to find some friends. And I'm just like, cool, I need friends. And I reclaimed that part of myself again. And this is an interesting thing to mention because for the longest, when I didn't have any I didn't have games to play, I wasn't playing like Tekken and Mortal Kombat like I typically would, it felt like I had the biggest hole in my just in me in general. I felt like incomplete. And I was I spent so much time trying to fill it. I was like, okay, what are things that other people do? I watched reality TV, that wasn't working for me. It was just, I was trying to understand that it was weird. For a while, was trying to get more social when I started going to college. I was kind of avid about playing Tekken Tech Tournament 2 because it came out in 2012. And this was kind of when I started my undergrad, and this is the switch for me, is I forsake doing school activities with other students because I had overbooked myself. But when I say overbooked, I would be playing Tekken anywhere between 5 and 8 hours a day. So that was what I did. That was my overbooked activity. And on top of that, I was going to school, which, I graduated with honors, but don't do that. That is horrible. I got little to no sleep. But as I was finishing out my undergrad, I figured maybe it was just I was being too weird. I should pick up another identity. That was horrifying. Attending tournaments was one of those things that helped me to reclaim that part of myself because I had been so lost trying to do everything to appease everybody else so I can get some sort of acceptance. It had taken such an emotional toll on me, and I kind of built these walls. And because I was used to being talked down to or talked about for liking games as much as I do. I do love fighting games, but on top of that, for a while, I was in the God of War. And my name is Cassiopeia, so it's a Greek name. It would be silly for me to not be in this game. So I would find games and I would try to beat them to weird things. I would be a completionist and do try to beat the game as fast as I can and stuff like that. But I realized that not that many people did that, and this isolation it was really hard for me, especially as a young adult when you're trying to transition from being teenager, figuring out who you are, and then you're a young adult, and it's just I had an idea of who I was, but feeling who I was wasn't good enough, and being maybe this is why I'm so just isolated, and it was just a really rough time. But I would say, okay, so things came to a head last year. And it was weird because I had thought that I was happy, but I had a really bad bout of depression. And one of the things that I think is so awesome is people that I met through the fighting game community. I had stopped playing for a while. They're like, hey, you're going to get back on, what's going on? And I was like, yo, I don't know, I'm going to a therapist, he said I have depression. And they, oh my goodness, okay, don't cry. But they were some of the sweetest people. They would, I have Discord, by the way, so just heads up. They would send me DMs every day. Are you doing okay?
Sorry, what's Discord?
Discord, I'm so sorry. I go on these tangents. Discord is pretty much, does anybody know what Slack is? Use Slack for work? It's pretty much gamer Discord. It's the gamer version of Slack. It's a really, the way I use it for connecting to different game Discords and talking to people who play the games I play. One of the Discords that I'm a part of is Tekken Zaibatsu, which I can explain that, but I'll go on a tangent. But there are numerous fighting game Discords, and even then, even though Tekken Zaibatsu is about Tekken, there are character-specific Discords, and basically what these Discords do is they show people how to play certain characters or how to be better at certain matchups. For example, one Tekken Discord, I guess the recent one, is the Armor King and Marduk discords. These are just character specific. They learn about the moves of Marduk and Armor King, and they figure out their matchups. They give each other tips on how to overcome like different matchups or more challenging matchups. And they share like video footage of other people playing the characters just to get an idea of how they play, so they can be a better player. So Tekken Zaibatsu is the same way, and Tekken Zaibatsu has a section of channels where basically they do coaching, so you get a better player, and it's like, hey, do you play, like I play Lee Chaolan in Tekken 7. So I was like, hey, my Lee's really bad, do you play Lee, can you help me out, can we do like a first to 5, you can figure out, you tell me what I'm doing wrong, because I can't figure it out, and someone plays with you, and they'll say, oh, okay, you did this, they do the compliment sandwich, they're like, oh, you did this, this, and this really well, you can work on this, this, and this, and it'll help you improve. And that's another way that you form relationships, because you end up developing these friendships with people, and you kind of just, when you're accepting of, because one of the things I love about the FGC, when you accept your own faults and your failures, you're around people that support you, and they say, okay, yeah, you're bad at this now, but if you practice this and this, I'll help you get better. And so it's this very strong support system, and it's really amazing because that's a support system that is one of the things that helped me out of my depression. That's right. One of the players, Marvel player, was how he got into the community is he really wanted to learn how to play Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. And the guy that taught him to play, he said at first for months he would win 0 games out of 100. So he was just getting washed. And eventually he learned how to play, and that guy became his best friend, because it's just that you're around each other so much. But yeah, back to my Discord story. But when I was going through my depression, my friends would DM me, and they would ask me, are you okay? Have you eaten? Is everything all right? And they would make me get out of bed, because otherwise I wouldn't. I would just stay in bed for all day. And it was so weird for me, because I would be so active, and I was always doing something, but I went from being really active and doing something to doing nothing. And they helped me to get out of bed. They would talk to me about stuff, and I'd be like, I'm not really into talking about Tekken right now. I kind of just want to go lay down. And they're just like, well, what do you want to talk about? And they would try to like help me out of things, help me talk about things, and try to get me active and awake. We switch my slide. So, speaking of bonding, FGC names, this is right. These are a couple of arguably controversial in like the FGC space, but they're so funny because it's just, when you see them, like it's just hilarious. Awesome. So this one is, can you see the red dot? Oh, it's not, it's a little small. But this tweet is so hilarious because, oh wow, my thing went really low. Sorry about that, guys. Better?
Yep.
Okay. So, I'll just hold it. The first tweet is hilarious because, Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. Wow. Really horrible marketing show, but like if you were a marketing student and you want to know what not to do to sell a product, look up Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. But there were a lot of issues with the game release, but this one was the most like arguably ethical, because this tweet basically reveals one of the players in the tournament who was going to be competing in the culminating finals was also a tester for the game. And people were like, how can you have like access to the game? Like he had access to the patch, a patch that would be before the finals, before everyone else did. And people were just like, this is horrible, this is extremely unethical. It's like, it's not even fair because you have such a huge advantage over the players. It was a show. It was a poop show. But that does not mean it was not hilarious. Oh man, I wanted to show the picture of Chun-Li's face. I felt like that summed up MGCI in a nutshell. But moving to the right, so this is actually a real quote. This isn't something that someone made up. It's hilarious. But this is basically what I'm talking about is this is a way of how like the fighting game community talks about things. Is like, and I think a lot of people do this. It's kind of like humorizing it and kind of opening a discussion that way. This was something that I really liked because even though I wasn't comfortable talking about my feelings, it was nice to be able to look at things and have like share your opinions with other people and kind of feel some sort of sense of camaraderie. But the Street Fighter 5 was like, that's Mike Ross. He did a show and he wanted to do the show to promote Street Fighter for Capcom. And he was like, one day they were just like, okay, how much money is this making us? And it was just like, he felt like this like hit in his heart. It's actually a really sad story. But like we were kind of, we understood where he was coming from because imagine doing something that you love for so long and you having the opportunity to get with this company that makes a game you love and you're like, oh, we can do the show, we can promote this and da-da-da. And then they ask you, well, I mean, am I making any returns on it? And it's just like, I mean, so much for enthusiasm. But he did this AMA and he just explains how he felt and how Capcom doing that made him feel. The show isn't running anymore and he doesn't even play Street Fighter anymore. He plays Guilty Gear. He's a Guilty Gear player. And I wanted this here because while it is like, I guess the quote is kind of funny when you kind of get in the meaning of it, it is something that on a level I think we can all identify with this idea of having a passion and just feeling like you're not good enough or what you do isn't good enough. But it's just, it stands as that, as when you're so passionate about something and it gets corrupted or by things beyond your control. The third one and the fourth one are more humorous than anything. That's just the NRS life cycle. That one's a funny meme. But just basically this general idea of creating these like memes, like this humor as a way of dealing with or opening up discussion about problems is something that I really taken with the FGC, and I think like it's to a point where I realize I'm overly sarcastic, and I'm just like, oh, I forget since people don't understand my jokes. So that's the thing. So my future plans. I have been fortunate to work with amazing psychologists from UTD. She helped me so much, and she gave me this really awesome advice. Because I was telling her about, I was like, I don't know, I feel like I was just really happy. And then after Evo, all these like really bad feelings just hit all at once. I didn't understand what was going on. And she was like, she's like, I think that sometimes some people don't realize they're wearing a mask. And I want to preface this with, there were additional things that I had. I had a really rough childhood growing up, like just no friends, bullies. My cousins bullied me. It was horrible. But she had made an interesting point. I think that she said over time that I had made a mask to cover all this up. So when I was happy, I wasn't really happy. I was kind of just, I knew what to say around people because I also had an issue with approval. But being around, when I went to Evo and I was around people that I didn't have to fake it. I didn't have to be around, didn't have to act a certain way around these people for them to accept me. They accepted me as I was. And, okay, sorry if I cry, but one of the things that I love the most about Evo is being around people who were completely different. I was sitting around Japanese players, Korean players. There were people from Dominican Republic, and it was just like people from Europe, all these people from around the world. And we're sitting and we're just watching these other two players like play each other. And there wasn't, and it was funny because some of our Japanese and our Korean players, they don't speak a lot of English. But we understood the fighting game language. We understood like when things got hyped. And it was so funny because like that was something that was communicated so well. Like there would be certain points, like certain combos where people would make like certain noises like and everybody knew like the intonations, and it was like so awesome that fighting games is that one thing, it's just like, it's like body language. You don't like need to have an understanding of what the language they speak. It's just, you just know. It's like you can feel it. It was like this, it's understood, and it was so just, I was like, it's peaceful. It was kind of like my Zen place. And I don't think, and I'm realizing, it's not that I don't think, I've never had a place that was just like, I could call a Zen place, like Evo was. And it's just like, I'm sitting here and reliving it, but it was so amazing to be around all of these people from around the world who enjoyed the things I enjoy, who enjoyed the games I enjoyed, and we could just watch it, and we would just know. And we're like, oh, this is happening, da, 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 da. How are they reacting? We would say no, like how things were going, and it was one of the first times, it was the first time I felt like I truly belonged anywhere. And I strongly recommend, if you are a gamer and you feel like, it's kind of weird. I mean, it's mainstream now, but I'm just like, I don't want to get too deep into it. They don't know what I'm saying, and it's just like, I've exposed myself. I really do recommend that you go to the fighting game tournament. I have a couple examples here. Now, unfortunately, Evo Japan's coming up. I'm sorry, the tickets are already sold out. I put it there just to be like, you can catch it on stream. It's going to be really cool, especially Tekken 7. It's going to be nice. Speaking of Tekken 7, there's Strong Style that's coming up in July. It's a 2-day event, but this Strong Style is different. This is going to be teams. So you like pick a friend and you go, you sign up, and it's kind of like you just go and you just have fun. It's a team tournament. Yeah, it's out in San Jose, California, so I guess you could justify it as an awesome summer trip. It's not that far, this is a game-related side note, it's not that far from the Westchester. You know that movie, the Westchester, with the house and the ghost? I'm gonna go see that, so fun. And then last but not least is Evo. This is when I went to this is the tournament that I was talking about where I had been around, my serenity. My infinite azure, I guess. We play Tekken 7, it's good song. But I do think that, I want to come to this my point here. Games were my solace for a long time, but it was something difficult for me to accept because I felt so out of place relative to where I was from. But despite being at a point where I shunned it, felt like crap, brought it back, still felt like crap, but pushed through it and began to meet people, I realized that at the end of the day, the C in the FGC is community. And this community is just, it was something that I had needed for a long time. And I was so happy to have finally been able to establish that. And I understand now, like we see on social media, there's a lot of issues with anxiety, depression, and whatnot. And a lot of people like to blame social media, and I understand. Social media does play a role in it. But I think one of the most important things is finding the community you vibe with and just be yourself. And it's really, and I understand, with the way the world is now, the way things are, it's kind of difficult to you're like, oh, I don't know, I don't want to go somewhere and get shot. And I understand that. There's so many things that it's really difficult for you to feel safe enough to go outside. But I realized that sometimes when we like to stay in comfort, it's because secretly we're scared. And sometimes we have to take those risks. And I think the risk I took was well worth it. And I hope that y'all can find some solace in your group, whether it is gaming or not. I hope y'all will be able to find the solace, because it took me too long to find where I belong. And I hope that, hopefully, my ramble will help y'all to find where you belong, and you don't go through years and years of isolation and confusion before you find where you're truly happy. Questions? this gentleman over to the left. Hello.
Hey, Jason. Thank you so much. Really enjoyed that.
Oh, you're welcome.
And I want to know, I really thought it was interesting the connection between the fighting games and the community and you working through your depression.
Uh-huh.
I was thinking about games like Depression Quest and Celeste, which are more kind of like overtly about depression.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly Celeste, which seems to have kind of a similar story as you, taking on something difficult and in the improving yourself, finding that as kind of a therapy.
Mm-hmm.
But you had a nice component that I think Celeste is reaching out on, which is community. But
Mm-hmm.
how do you think about those games with respect to your playing those? Have you looked at Depression Quest and Celeste, or are there other games? And kind of when games talk more overtly about depression, does that connect with you?
Well, it's interesting because I'm aware of Depression Quest, by the way. For me, it didn't really do anything for me. I think a lot of that was because for a long time I was in denial about my depression. And it's weird, this is something I didn't realize, but you can be depressed for long periods of time and just be unaware of it. And so I think I stayed away from it on a thing of, I didn't think I was depressed. I was like, it's not about me. And so it's kind of like a thing of kind of just denying that. But I definitely should look into it and see. One of the things in particular that I love about fighting games is that it's like a physical, you're actively doing something difficult. Like, one of my favorite examples is I have a friend who is Tekken King, which is pretty much, it's really close to True Tekken guy. So he is up here, and I'm here. I'm green ranks, really low. It's pretty much you're basically getting out of basics because I hadn't played for so long that I'm having to relearn the game. But I get wiped by this guy. And it's the physical going back every day and noticing little improvements. I'm just like, yes, I finally ducked that hell sweep. Or yes, I finally low parry. Like the little, like those like physical improvements that I identify in myself. And it just, I love how those little things just kind of snowball. And I think that was the main thing of why I'm just addicted to games. And plus, it's such a stereotypical thing to say, but I literally am. I'm diagnosed ADHD, and video games have always been something that kept my attention. So it only makes sense that I would get into marketing, and I'd be a marketing czar. Just something that keeps my attention. But I always loved that idea about games, of being able to physically see my progress as I'm getting better. Like for a while, if you put me in front of Super Mario World, I can beat this game 3 times. I can beat this game completionist, I can beat this game speed running, and I can beat this game on 1 life. It's because I played it just so much all the time, but I get the enjoyment out of seeing the improvements. And I learn a little thing about a level here and there. But I can check out some depression-based games. I've actually never considered it. I was just,
I just wanted to follow up and say, like, Depression Quest would not be good for people with depression.
oh.
Because it is meant to be a depression simulator,
Mm-hmm.
so that people who don't have depression can understand what it's like.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you have depression and play it, 1, it can make you more depressed.
Mm-hmm.
And 2, if your general reaction is like, okay, I don't see what the big deal is, you might be depressed because it's describing, a world which is and so it totally makes sense why we connect. And then also just, check out Celeste. It's like exactly all the things you just said. It'll make you feel better. So.
Oh, sorry. I was listening to it, and you were like, it's a simulator. And I automatically, I'm sorry. I automatically went to Ghost Simulator, and I was like, I wonder. Sorry. ADHD thoughts. Any other questions? Yes?
Hi, I'm from the school newspaper. I wanted to ask, how do you think TCC would change if its students had a community like FGC?
Honestly, I think that one of the things, like I mentioned, one of the things that I noticed a change in me was I'm less isolated. I'm more likely to be social. When I have like fighting games or a fighting game event, I'm more likely to be social. And it forces me to get out of it forced me so much to get out of being alone and secluded. And I think that having a community like that would be really helpful. And I do think sometimes, like I mentioned when I was an undergrad, I was supposed to be in newspaper, I was supposed to be doing video production, and I blew that off to go play Tekken Tag. So I think that having communities like that, because FGC is so niche, especially on college campuses, it can be really small communities. I think it'll be a great opportunity to have people who don't really feel like, there's nothing socially here for me, to feel like they're part of something, they feel like they belong. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes?
So, are you going to be able to?
I wanted to, but once I realized how much those flights were, I was like, I have a homegirl who's teaching in Japan. I was like, girl, send me pictures. Woo!
Yep.
So, can you describe, so besides the actual tournament, you're there with these people and all these different cultures, and you kind of have this, camaraderie going on. It's not based on talk. Like, when you was here first time, describe it. Like, what do you think when you walked in? What did you see? What came to mind?
The biggest thing was, oh my God, this place is huge. Because I had only seen, and it's weird how deceiving pictures are. Like, you'll look at a picture, you'll go, okay, that's what it looks like. Because that has been my thing. I go, okay, it's kind of a deal. But Evo, when you go into the ballroom, it's huge. It's like, there are the vendor stations, there are people that are, first of all, Evo's really good about catering to people who play fighting games religiously, or people who are just getting into it. So it doesn't discriminate on if you're really good at games or not. So when you go in, you first see all these like vendor booths, and you're just like, okay, that's cool, where are the games? And then you see it. There's a section exclusively for you brought your own console and you were trying to like play somebody else on something else. Y'all, let me tell you, there's a Sailor Moon fighting game. And there were a group of guys playing the Sailor Moon fighting game like their life depended on it. I was like, okay, that's pretty sick. I'm about this. And then when you go out to, after you're like past that section, there were like game demos. I got to play Dead or Alive 6, and I got to see, I wanted to play Soul Calibur, but they were having like a tournament, and it was a line for it, and so I was like, I'm not gonna worry about it. But it's just like, once you get past all of that, then it was just like Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, Tekken, Smash, and then on the wall, this huge wall, all like Street Fighter 5 and Injustice 2. And you look and you just see like a sea of people. And I remember being like, this is huge. It was a little overwhelming at first because I knew it was huge, but seeing it was huge. And it was just, that was one of my first impression of Evo, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have two questions. I'll ask one, and then if anyone else has any. This one's like a little bit about the community itself, rather it's sub-communities. I heard from a friend who went to Evo maybe 4 or 5 years ago that just like you said at the beginning, the Street Fighter crowd, they think they run the show and they own everything, and then they just kind of ostracize, especially the Smash community. So I wanted to know your thoughts about like the kind of clash of communities within the
I got
FGC.
you. Here it is. I was the same way. I was like, yo, why are we being mean to Smash? That sucks. We share a venue with them. What's the big deal? So apparently, from what I gathered from some OGs, what happened is the for a while, Evo was just fighting games. And they were like, hey, let's bring on Smash. And they had Smash on. And apparently, there were some issues with Smash and the FGC because Smash like, we're not a part of the FGC. So that's where that joke comes from. Somebody in the Smash community was like, we're not a part of the FGC. So if you go on like, if you ask people, you ask fighting games, hey, do you play Smash? I don't play Smash. Smash isn't a part of the FGC. Mm-hmm. So it's like a joke that started off like it was a serious thing that people had with it, and they just carried it. So that's why, like at Evo especially, and on top of that, there'll always be like, which I thought was weird because there are people in all communities that complain. They're like, oh, Evo didn't do da-da-da-da for my game. I'm a multiplayer. And like there are people that did it in all communities, but Smash in particular, they'll be like, oh, you can tell they didn't want us there. They didn't have this set up and da-da-da-da-da. And as I was saying, Evo was huge. And they had Melee and Smash 4. I saw with my eyes. I saw like these huge TV setups that they had for Melee and Smash. And I'm just like, what are you talking about? There were a lot of setups there. There were so many setups. It's actually kind of funny. Because I remarked to one of my friends, I was like, it's so funny, you walk by Tekken and you hear like this hardcore music, and then when you go by Smash, it's just like, it was like the funniest thing ever, because like the music just like drastically changes. But a lot of people get upset because, fighting game community get upset because every year they always act like, oh, Mr. Wizard doesn't want us there, and they always treat the community bad. For Street Fighter players in general, this was something I noticed. I was like, maybe it's just me. But there are a lot of players. One of the commentators, he commentates for Street Fighter V, Injustice, and he's commentated for Tekken 7, his name's Sejam. He remarked, he started off as an NRS player, and he would be like, hey, you are really good at Street Fighter. Ford, why don't you play, you get into Injustice, really good game. And he would get told by Street Fighter players, Injustice is crap. And so it was like, hey, NRS games. And so he said that he had that for a while, but Street Fighter 4 players acting like, I mean, yeah, you're in the FGC, but like pretty much gatekeeping it, like, but you're not like real FGC unless you can play Street Fighter 5, which I think is a lot of the reason why Street Fighter 5 gets bagged on so much, because people are like, ha, your game is trash. The only reason people are playing that is for money. And so it's like this thing of finally like usurping the gatekeepers. And I think that's a huge reason, huge push behind it. Even though a lot of people will say, no, it's just because Capcom just wants to make money. I'm just like, nah, I think it's a, low-key it's a power play. It's kind of like, you said your game was better than my game for so long. Now your game is trash. And, man, Street Fighter V Saga is so fun. But yeah, that's...
All right, awesome, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes?
I haven't played for years, but how many games are there in Evo? Like 8? Like you have Super Mario Brothers, Melee, Taken 7, etc. So how many total are there at Evo? 8 or 9?
To be honest, this depends on who's going to be at finals day. This is also in the contention in the FGC. This is actually kind of funny. Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite was reduced to being a side game for EVO. They were so angry, but there's a lot of politics that kind of goes into what games get picked, but a lot of the reason was Marvel vs. Capcom Ultimate failed, or Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, failed so horribly that no way EVO is going to have that like another year. So, or as a top 8 game on finals day. So basically, if a game brings in people, it brings in like a lot of players, and it brings in a lot of views, then it's going to be on finals day. But there are side games. Like I told you, there's a Sailor Moon fighting game. There were people playing Power Rangers. There were people playing Ninja Turtles. I went to the anime suite, which you would expect, they're just playing anime games. Mm-mm. There were some Japanese games I had never seen. There were people playing them, and it's just pretty much EVO is kind of like a celebration of fighting games. So while the main ones, probably Tekken, Street Fighter V, Tekken 7, Street Fighter V, Injustice 2, this is another point of contention. There are 2 Smash games at EVO. People don't like this because they're like, why do you give Melee finals day time? Because Smash 4 is out. And so now that there's new Smash out, people are like, are you going to get rid of Melee? Are you going to get rid of Melee? There's no way 3 games are going to be here. I don't know. I don't pick the games. I feel bad for Mr. Wizard for having to do it. But there are 2 Smash games. So you have Tekken 7, Street Fighter V, Justice 2. Oh my God. I'm sorry. Injustice 2, more than likely. The Mortal Kombat 11 is coming out, but Injustice 2 has 1 more year at EVO, arguably before it gets relegated to a side tournament, and then they'll make room for Mortal Kombat 11. It's just how it is. 2 Smash games, and then there's usually, I think at EVO this year was Dragon Ball FighterZ,
Mm-hmm.
and what was the other one? I think it might have just been those.
Blaze Blue, maybe?
Blaze Blue, yes, Central Fiction. Thank you. Oh my gosh, anime community's been broken. But nobody plays their game. I'm sorry. There's actually a funny joke I wanted to mention. I'm sorry, I know this doesn't. This is kind of off tangent. So I'm wearing this shirt. This is a Skullgirls character. Her name is Valentine. But like another funny joke is there are people that are just like, no one plays Skullgirls, and the reason they do that is because the developer of Skullgirls, he loves his baby, he loves his game, but he likes to push his game a little too overzealously, and so people were like, "No, it's okay, I'm good." Like this one guy, he made a tweet that ended up blowing up. He was like, "Oh wow, this tweet got really popular," and he mentioned another anime game. I don't know if he mentioned Melty. I think he mentioned Melty Blood, and the developer was like, "Or they could play Skullgirls," and he's just like, "Nah, it's okay. I'm trying to get them interested in fighting games, not hate it." And he got like really, he got really upset. But it's just like this running gag where people just tell him just to make him mad because he always acts like Skullgirls. He has a Capcom mentality. He has Street Fighter mentality about Skullgirls that it's the best game. And everybody's just like, yeah, too bad nobody plays it just to make him angry. But yeah, it's a lot of little things here and there. Any other questions?
Right. So, if I can get one last one in, I want to make sure that I understood it. Like somehow fighting games both isolated you and got you back into the community?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. It was because the FGC is small relative to like Fortnite, who's like huge, and there are like millions of people that play it. FGC is really small, so it was isolating in a sense that I didn't know too many people that played it. But when I got back into it and I found out about the FGC and I had all these people that played it, it was like my gateway. Yeah, so it was weird in a way. It was my isolation and my community like thing. Very interesting. Valid point, man. Valid point.
All right, cool.
Oh, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so talk about any trends you notice as far as like gender, race, just in the community or
I'm so glad you brought that up. So, for the longest, everybody's like, oh, okay, so, because the issue of gender does come up, but one of our Tekken, I say Tekken, it's my lifeblood, one of our best American players is an African-American woman. Her name is Kodakor, and she plays Elisa, Xiao Yu, and Asuka, but her main characters are Xiao Yu and Elisa. She's really, really good, and she actually ended up going to Amsterdam last year to get in the last chance qualifier to participate in the Tekken finals. She didn't make it, but she made top 8, and it was really interesting because a lot of people didn't know how she would be taken, but people were just like, oh, she's Team America because she's out there, she's doing the thing for America, and it was an interesting thing to see kind of like those like gender kind of things kind of fade away where she ended up just being repping Team America because she had gotten in the top 8. And she's sponsored now. She's like, she can play like all around the country, around the world, and it's amazing. And we also have, well, I think Miles, Quiet Face Miles. I don't know if she's gonna play this year. I say that because her sponsor let her, her sponsor separated. But hopefully she finds another team and she's able to play. In Japan, there is Tanukana, which, funny Evo story. It's funny because she went to Evo and she got beat by a guy who had been playing Tekken 7 for a week because she was playing this character named Claudia who has a really good like hop kick. But either way, that's fun, just her own jokes. But she's a really good player. She plays Xiao Yu. Then there is, stay with me, Yu. She's a Japanese player. She plays Xiao Yu as well. There is, oh my gosh, I totally forgot her name, I'm blanking out. She's a Swede. She plays Lars. She won a tournament with Lars. She's a really awesome lady, like really cool. One of my homegirls that I know who's also, I think she's from Norway. She might not be Swede. I hope she's not. Hopefully she doesn't know this. Maybe she won't know I said this. But she's really awesome. She's an Akuma player. Yeah, Akuma's in Tekken 7, y'all. It is crazy. Tekken 7 is like Mugen now. But she's really great with Akuma. But she's also really, she's a really great teacher. She's a really great tutor. And if you talk to her on Discord and it's like, hey, I really want to learn how to play Tekken 7, she's very good about leading you along and helping you out and very supportive and just awesome in general. Bless you. But yeah, so it does come up and we have been getting like where it's like, you see like these players, it's like, oh my God, where'd she come from? And she's like, oh, I've just been playing by myself for a long time. And it's like, this is set.
Cool. So we'll. All right. Thanks so much.